Yeah, welcome back, SMX Insider. We are previewing SuperMotocross World Championship coming up from Washougal into the stretch run now with 4 races to go in the Pro Motocross leg of the season. But Jason Thomas, I'm going to let you dunk this ball, spike it, home run, trot, whatever you want to do. You theorized that with Jet Lawrence out, Chase Sexton might go to another level. He and Hunter Lawrence had split motos 5 apiece until Jet went out, and now suddenly Sexton is dominant since.
Yeah, and I want to be a little careful because sometimes I get things wrong, so I don't want to set myself up for failure here. But I did firmly believe that Chase Sexton was the second best guy, and I believe he's had a little bit of a mental block with Jet ever since he's entered the 450 class. So if you remove the best rider, and then you also remove the reason for the mental block, logically it made sense to me that Chase Sexton was going to refine himself, rekindle that confidence, and get back to his winning ways. And he has done exactly that, winning 5 motos in a row.
Yeah, it's not that he was getting second to Jet in every moto. Hunter beat him soundly in the first moto at Southwick, the first moto at High Point. It had happened many times this year. It's not happening anymore. And we'll see if he can keep that going to Washougal. That's this weekend. Speaking of Washougal, the Washougal native, Levi Kitchen, I don't know where he went for about a month and a half, but he's back, JT.
Yeah, and I've asked him this question, like, where was the guy that we saw? Think about that race in Seattle. He was so dominant in that race, and then we just haven't seen it, like you said, for weeks on end. And he just chalks it up to a new motorcycle. He doesn't have the experience on the Kawasaki for all these different tracks and knowing where to go and that comfort level that he's looking for. But he certainly found it this weekend, and we'll have to see. You know, he moved into second place in points, but are we on to something where he can carry this into his home racetrack and all the way through the rest of Pro Motocross and into those oh-so-valuable SMX playoff rounds?
The 250 class has been so crazy. So it's been Hayden Deegan, good every week. And then it's maybe Vial's going to challenge him, maybe Hymas, maybe Masterpool. We're back to Kitchen like he was at round 1. Now it's back to Kitchen. It almost illustrates more how impressive Deegan is because we see how many ups and downs there should be. And Deegan doesn't let that get to him.
Yeah, Deegan's really the story of this 250 class. And no matter what gets thrown at him, no matter who has a great weekend or not, guess what? His points lead continues to grow. And it's an endless shuffle of who goes into that second place, it seems. But the number continues to go higher. And if you're Hayden Deegan or anyone associated with this program, you have to just shrug your shoulders sometimes and go, hey, it's working out. Like, we're not doing it how we necessarily draw it up. But as long as that points lead keeps increasing, who cares?
We go to Washougal. That is on West Coast time, but it will actually be a slight schedule adjustment than usual. Race Day Live, you can see the schedule there when that starts. That's presented by motosport.com. But more importantly, the motos start at noon local, which is 3 o'clock Eastern. 3 Eastern will be moto number 1. That will be an NBC moto also. 450s race first. But you can, of course, watch everything also on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass outside the United States. But we're racing at 3 Eastern, not what you would expect, which would be 4 Eastern for a Western round of the championship. So don't miss that first moto. And as always, we'll give you all the live coverage with Peacock and the SMX Video Pass from Washougal. Big interview time. Not often we get to talk to an Olympic gold medalist on the show. This is the 2016 gold medalist in BMX racing, Connor Fields, but we know him as motocross super fan and actually pretty darn involved behind the scenes. So Connor, first, congrats. We know you're going to be calling the BMX events for the upcoming Olympics this summer as an analyst. So good job sliding into the TV role, kind of like our buddy JT here. But let's talk some motocross. We started our show here talking about the mental side now that Jet Lawrence is out. What do you think it is like for Chase Sexton to now suddenly feel completely different, I would imagine, going to the line than he did even 3 weeks ago? What do you think that experience is like? And have you seen that play out on the track?
Well, first off, before I say that, I just think that us as fans, we're the losers in Jet getting hurt, because I think that would be a fantastic battle right now between both the Lawrence brothers and Chase. I think Chase at the moment would have something even for a healthy Jet. No way for us to know that. I guess we'll have to wait until next year to see. But I think, and JT can relate to it, and I've heard JT talk about this on other conversations before, but when you go up to the gate and you know you are the fastest guy and you know that you have everybody beat, it almost boosts you up even higher because that confidence is there, and you get in the gate knowing that you've got everybody covered. all you have to do is go perform. Then you can kind of settle in, get comfortable, ride at a pace that you feel comfortable at, versus when he was going against Jet, and maybe Chase wasn't at his best, maybe he wasn't comfortable yet, he was having to push all the way up to and sometimes even over that limit, which isn't a fun thing to have to do. But if he knows that he can just go race at a comfortable pace and he's still got everybody covered, and clearly he's fit. I mean, I don't know if you saw, JT saw he was there on the podium, but after the second moto this past weekend, he didn't even look like he was tired. He looked like he was ready for another 30. And I think he just gets in the game right now with a lot of confidence. But with that being said, I bet you if you could talk to him, he would say that he wishes Jet was out there because he wants to do it beating everybody.
Your buddy, Christian Craig, we're finally starting to see signs. Finally starting to get him into the top 10 and closer to the top 5.
Yeah, I tell you, it's been a journey over the past 12 to 18 months with his injury. I think recently you were talking about how you saw his arm and you could visibly see just how bad it was. Not everybody gets to see that. So they only see what happens on the track. And it's been a journey, multiple surgeries. And he went and saw Dr. V over in Colorado, the same guy that everybody goes and sees. But for whatever reason, his arm got infected and then his surgery didn't take. And it was just bad luck after bad luck. But he's back now. Every weekend has been an improvement. And he's told me just recently, he finally feels like he can start to ride like himself, and his arm's letting him ride like himself again, which is great.
So you've got a great experience coming up. You're going to join the broadcast team for the Olympics and cover this event that you participated in before. Talk a little bit about your thoughts going into that. It's a big change. I know from experience, getting behind the camera, talking about these athletes that you participated with. You're going to be teamed up with Todd Harris, who has this great Supercross tie-in. He's been a part of the broadcast team that Jason Wygant and myself are on. What are your thoughts going into that? Are you excited? Are you nervous?
Both. I'm very excited. I'm very nervous. I'm following in your footsteps, a racer turned broadcaster. Working with Todd will be amazing. He covered BMX last time, and his voice is the one that covered my accident. And so when we first got to meet and start doing some rehearsals, he was like, "Man, I'm so excited to be working with you." Like that shook me when that happened, when you had your crash. But I grew up listening to Todd on Supercross, so I think it's going to be really special to work with him. But as far as the coverage of the race, I'm both. I'm very excited, but I'm also nervous, right? I think there's a bit of a responsibility, and you both can relate to this. When you're the voice of a sport, you feel a bit of a duty and responsibility to do a good job and to share it with the world. And especially when it comes to the Olympics, 99.9% of the people watching my sport are not the hardcore fans. These are going to be people that are just watching the Olympics on a Tuesday night, and it happens to be my sport. And I have to introduce them to the sport and hopefully make them fall in love with it. So that I feel a bit of a responsibility, but I'm also excited because, as you both can relate to, I know this better than I know anything else. So it's as easy as saying the ABCs. I'm talking about something I'm so knowledgeable about. If anything, my challenge is going to be that I don't overshare, because I know all the ins and outs, and same as you guys, I know all the secrets. And so you have to be careful of what to say and what not to say. But I couldn't be more excited to be the voice of my sport.
That's cool. Well, that's another chance of a lifetime. And good to say now we can really call each other colleagues. That's cool. We've been doing the work for NBC there. So congrats on the gig. And hopefully we see you at one of the dirt bike races soon, right?
Absolutely. You're coming to my hometown for the finale of the SuperMotocross Championship. I grew up going to Sam Boyd Stadium, and that's like a core memory of mine. And so when they haven't come back to Vegas in years, I missed it. But it'll be awesome to be back in Las Vegas this year.
Cool. All right, we'll see you then, and good luck covering the Olympics this summer.
Go Team USA.
Oh, that was fun. Great to catch up with our friend Connor there. Let's tell him and you how you can watch Washougal Race Day Live coverage. That's qualifying, presented by motosport.com. That'll take place at noon Eastern on Saturday. We'll be showing the first qualifying sessions from Washougal. We normally cover the second, but because the schedule is a little different for the weekend, we'll only have time to get the first qualifying sessions in instead of the second qualifying session. That's at noon Eastern. And 3 Eastern, that's when the first motos take place. 450s race first, and the first 450 moto at noon Eastern will air live on NBC. but you can always watch everything on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass outside the United States, all the motos and all the qualifying action. So that's Washougal, and we're going to talk 30-second board. These are the hot topics in the sport this weekend. Levi Kitchen, we already talked about the 1-1 JT at Spring Creek, a big breakthrough for him. But this is his home race. Like literally, although it's funny, he says that this track is not always the best for him, but we've seen with Kitchen, JT, when he's hot, he's hot.
Yeah, it's going to be a great scene for him. And I love that he talks about he used to be able to ride from his house on his motorcycle over to Washougal and do laps there, which is pretty amazing. It's also interesting that he says this is a difficult racetrack for him. So we'll see how that all squares out. But there is no doubt that Levi Kitchen found some momentum that he will take home with him to the Pacific Northwest. And yeah, what a great time for him to be heading up there.
Crowd was mega for him at Seattle Supercross. He heard they're bringing in a lot more sand than usual for Washougal, and he thinks that'll be better for him because he prefers softer tracks. We'll switch over to Hayden Deegan. We already talked about him at the top of the show, the point situation. But of course, with Deegan, it's on and off the track that gets the attention. Here are his comments about Chance Hymas this weekend at Millville.
Honestly, I'm like, I don't know, dude. Chance try to cut down on the start to obviously get the start. Took me out, pipes all man. I kicked that thing down, got back up on it. I'm like, this is the time to show that I got that dog in me, right? So I sent it till the end, and yeah, P2. And I mean, it's safe to say Chance has one coming now. That's how I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna be real, but yeah, good moto though. A lot of points made today, and I'll never give up. I'll never give up, baby.
Now, I'm sure a lot of you folks heard that on our broadcast live, but at that point, JT, you've seen this a million times. The riders come off the track. They haven't even necessarily seen a replay yet of what happened. So in the press conference, I gave Hayden a chance to maybe walk it back once he knew that Hymas had hurt his foot, or maybe once he had seen some photos of the replay. He kind of just said it is what it is. He did not walk it back. So that's kind of the Hayden Deegan thing. He is not afraid to make enemies out there for better or for worse.
Yeah, I certainly didn't see this scenario play out the way he did. My take on the whole thing is it was a racing incident. I've never seen someone getting the whole shot purposely drop their leg or lose traction in an effort to take someone out behind them. Like that would be a new dynamic for me, some sort of ninja move that I've never come across before. So I think it was much less nefarious than any of that, but we've seen this from Hayden, right? He is looking for an edge. He is looking for a way to keep himself motivated, regardless of what it takes to do that. So if that's what it takes to be your best, and you have to find some way that someone slighted you to find your edge, I get it. I just think this one might be a little misplaced.
Spring Creek was great for a couple riders. You might watch the race and say, oh, that's awesome for the rookie Casey Cochran. He got a whole shot in a mud race. Everybody else had problems. He had a giant lead. But it's not just that, JT. As a rookie, he has really come on strong here the last 3 or 4 rounds, and Spring Creek was just a continuation of that. Might really be something here for the 166.
Yeah, he's really breaking out. This was such a great opportunity with him getting the start, leading laps. But, you know, I look back at Hangtown, that fast qualifying lap he put in, I raised my eyebrows at it because that's something. You don't set a lap, then reset a lap. He was kind of going back and forth at Hangtown. So we've seen glimpses that this was possible. I think he finally made good on the opportunity that was in front of him. And there's something to be said for that. Guys get good starts. They set themselves up, but they don't follow through. Cochran followed through here for 35 minutes. He ran that pace, and he accomplished his first ever podium. That is a huge step forward in the story of Casey Cochran.
And another rider had a great second moto was Dylan Schwartz. And kind of the same thing, maybe a lighter version of it. Schwartz was running third for a while. We thought might have an overall podium. Ended up with a career best 5th. But he also has been quietly pretty good the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, similar theme here, right? Dylan Schwartz has been sneaky good this entire Pro Motocross season on a Suzuki, which he's kind of out there by himself. There are not many Suzuki 250s out there in the field. But similar to Casey, he got a good start. There was chaos in the field behind him. And in those moments, you have to find a way to summon your best form. You have to put yourself out there and take every chance. And we saw that. You know, I felt the 10th in the first moto was more indicative of what he's going to show us more times than not. This 6th place in the second moto was him seizing the opportunity that was in front of him. And that is so, so important as these riders start to move up and they try to find themselves and eventually move into that 450 class.
Yeah, if you see Schwartz at the end of the day in 9th or 10th, don't be surprised anymore. Now we know that is what he is completely capable of. That's not a surprise. We'll go to the 250 SMX bubble, Schwartz being a part of that. This is the riders vying to get into the top 20 and qualify automatically for the playoffs. So Cochran, with hardly any Supercross points, has already done it. Same thing for Joey Savacci, who's 19th. Marchbanks is a 450 rider now, so he's not going to score any more 250 points. He will drop out. There's Schwartz. He might take advantage. Phil Nicoletti's a 450 guy. We don't know when we're getting Cameron McAdoo back, so Schwartz might be the beneficiary of all this.
Yeah, Schwartz is in a great spot here. He's going into tracks that he should do well on. 4 events to go. And you mentioned some of those guys are aiming at the 450 class. McAdoo, I think, is just about to get back on a motorcycle, so I would be shocked if we saw him before Charlotte, which would set him up maybe to be in those LCQ races at those rounds. But Schwartz has everything right in front of him. If he rides like he did this weekend, it won't even be a conversation. He'll easily waltz into a starting grid at Charlotte.
Time for the SMX medical update. We bring in Dr. Joe McGinley. The topic coming out of Spring Creek into Washougal is will Chance Hymas, who was second in 250 points for a bit, will he be able to compete this weekend? What have you learned? And I guess you could talk about ankle and foot injuries in general here, but what do you think Hymas is up against, Dr. Joe?
Well, I think the best news is the x-rays were negative, so there's no major fracture down in that ankle. There's some great footage of the ankle injury itself. So if you watch that first turn incident, Chance had his foot out coming into the turn. It looked like it got caught on a rut, and then Deegan's front tire hit it and really twisted that ankle. Now, the good news is with motocross, the safety gear is excellent. The boots are really good. They provide a lot of protection, but still full speed on the bike, getting it locked in that rut and getting hit, that's going to put some significant twisting motions on that injury. So the biggest concern now is going to be ligament injury and instability of that ankle. So I'm sure he's getting some additional follow-up, getting some MRIs on that, and that'll determine the extent of the injury. I suspect without there being a fracture, he'll be able to get that taped up and motor through the rest of the season. All the riders are out there riding banged up. These guys are really strong. They're out there for the fans. They're out there for the points, and they want to get out there each week.
So if you're advising him, and let's hope for the best, let's assume that he's going to show up at Washougal and all of the things that we, negative x-rays, and hopefully the scans come back in a positive light. Is there anything he can do to brace it outside of taping, or what would you advise him to do as far as just securing it and try to, because riders going to look for confidence inspiring feel out of his ankle? Are there things he can do to try to find that?
So the MRI is going to be the number one thing. That's going to say what the extent of the injury is. Sometimes you can't see fractures on x-rays either, and the MRI will also confirm, whether there's what's called a non-displaced fracture or chip fractures as part of it. The biggest concern would be a syndesmotic injury. That's the main stabilizer of the ankle joint itself. So that's what they'll be looking for. Other ankle ligaments on the inside and outside of the ankle, those could be injured as well. But in the end, with good preparation, you can get some good stability in the ankle with proper taping and bracing. And then the boots provide extra support and confidence getting back out.
Well, thanks for the update. We'll see what happens this weekend. Thanks, Dr. Joe.
Thank you.
If this guy keeps riding like he did this weekend, they're all in trouble. Chase Sexton has just completely taken control of the 450 class. And it is so wild, by the way, to see Sexton with this giant point lead in SMX when so much of his Supercross campaign was talk about frustration and the bike and trying to figure it out. Life comes at you quick, both good and bad.
Yeah, Sexton he's on fire. If you were ever looking to see what it looks like when a guy gets his confidence back and understands that he's the best rider on the starting line, this is it. This is the story of Chase Sexton has taken a drastic turn. And I believe that Chase is right back to where he was leaving Salt Lake City in May of 2023. Now, there's a lot there to unpack, different team, different surroundings, different motorcycle, all of that. But mentally, and maybe the most important aspect for Chase Sexton specifically, mentally, I think he's almost right back to where he was, as believing he is that guy again.
That's going to be wild when we get Tomac and Webb and Jet Lawrence back, both into Pro Motocross Playoffs. Supercross next year. Going to be interesting how this little curveball will affect things going forward. Jason Anderson had a good run going, fastest qualifier in Spring Creek. Anderson has not been bad at any point this year, but there are other races where I feel he takes a notch up. You just really can't count him out, especially that podium battle.
Yeah, and he's done very well at Spring Creek. You don't immediately kind of relate those two, Jason Anderson riding well here, but that qualifying session was just another reminder that he's had podium moto finishes here before, and something about this racetrack agrees with him. I think the track he practices on at Club MX is very similar in dirt and texture, which is going to make the motorcycle a little bit more comfortable. He's going to have an idea of where he wants to go with settings. And yeah, all of these riders, whether it's Anderson or Justin Cooper or Aaron Plessinger, they're all looking at that final podium spot each and every weekend, and they understand the opportunity that's in front of them, and all of them are chasing it right now. Justin Cooper was the benefactor of that this past weekend, but it could be Anderson as we go to Washougal just as easily.
A little further back than that in the standings, there's some critical battles which will potentially determine the seeding for SMX playoffs. We'll talk about that more in depth later in our SMX Facts with Clinton Fowler, but shout out to the likes of Harry Koulas, Grant Harlan, and Phil Nicoletti, who are using really strong, consistent rides in Pro Motocross every weekend to move up the standings. And now Harlan's in the 20th, and Phil's trying to avoid the LCQs that he was in last year in SMX, and he's 16th now. There's Harry Koulas, 21st. And now we hear our Finnish journalist, Yanni Hovey, saying Koulas is going to try to race the rest of these. He was supposed to be done after Spring Creek. You can't be done when you're 21st in overall points.
Yeah, and it's going really well for Kula. So I understand the want and desire to kind of stick around. And you think about the money that's up for grabs in September, why not? And I've personally raced Supercross races in Europe against Hari before, so I know he's capable. Now, is he going to go out and be top 10 in Charlotte or Dallas, Fort Worth, or Vegas? I don't know. That's a different ask. But he certainly has the skills versus some of the other Europeans who have come over where they had no Supercross experience whatsoever. Hari's in a little bit different bucket there, so I think it could work out if he does continue to ratchet up the points and jump into that top 20.
Well, they're all, JT, trying to pull what I call the Colt Nichols, who showed up for a couple of races in Pro Motocross last year on his own dime, got into the playoffs, crushed it there, was top 10, near top 5 in a lot of the races, and made himself 6 figures. We've been waiting to hear the announcement that Nichols, who parted ways with Liqui Beta, would be joining Twisted Tea Suzuki. The word is finally out this week, but oddly, he will not race for them until Unadilla. But he's so far back in SMX points, it might not matter anyway. Every extra point might not count because he's 60-some back of Harlan, who's 20th. So maybe in the bigger picture, this is a way to get ready also for next year. And everybody loves Colt, so good to see him find a ride.
Yeah, I think this has been a poorly kept secret for us, the SMX insiders, right? But it was a little peculiar that he's going to come back at Unadilla. I certainly expected him earlier in the season because of those valuable points being up for grabs. You look at the lengths he went to last year, borrowing a Kawasaki, showing up at Washougal. So I kind of thought that same thought process where for sure he's going to show up. He's going to be out there as soon as he possibly can and try to gain every point possible. But clearly they have a little bit of a different plan in mind for him to arrive at Unadilla.
All right. Good to see Colt back in a few weeks. But yeah, if he had raced 4 motos, Spring Creek and Washougal, his entire picture might look different. When we go to Washougal, it'll look a little different. It is military appreciation race. We have a great history of this in Monster Energy Supercross. It'll be awesome to have this in Pro Motocross because everybody usually gets in on the deal with the graphics and the gear. The opening ceremonies will be different at Washougal. So we salute the service and we love to see it.
Yeah, this is awesome. I've spoken to so many people that are associated with this, military veterans that are coming out to the race, and the Huffman family is going to do a great job of celebrating them and showing everyone's appreciation. So as we always talk about, it's really fun to see what the teams can come up with. They can get creative. They can really think outside the box as far as graphics and colorways and all these things. And most importantly, it shows what is the most important thing here is recognizing all of these people who have sacrificed everything. They put their lives on the line to keep this country safe.
That's just part of the story at Washougal. The thing you will hear every year, military appreciation race or not, is how scenic this track is. Now, me as a TV guy, I shudder when I have to say these words. TV doesn't quite show it. It looks cool on TV, but I'd heard about this for years when I was a kid before I went to this race. You have to go in person, and not just the racetrack. You know, JT, the roads on the way there, the scenery. in the general area, it's kind of, you got to see it in person to believe it. So put this on the bucket list, folks. I know it's probably far from folks on the East Coast, but you got to go and see it in person at least once.
Yeah, as far as if you're trying to rank tracks as far as scenery, this one's in a world of its own. Like, it doesn't even belong on the same list as the other tracks. But it's also a track that's very, very challenging for the riders. So I think the contrast between a fan favorite and the most scenic versus the most tricky and challenging for the riders, it's a really, really wide gap there. So watch for the riders. You're going to hear comments about how slippery it is, the shadows, how just difficult it is to go fast on this racetrack. And then you're going to pan over to the fans, who are all just in amazement and wonder at how great this race it truly is.
Well, here's the juxtaposition. What makes it so scenic? The beautiful trees. Why are there shadows on the track the riders don't like? Those same trees. So enjoy your spot on the fence, everybody, and come out and see it in person one of these years. SMX Facts time. We bring Clinton Fowler in. As mentioned, we're going to talk about those bubble battles. Let's focus on 450s here because we already talked 250 earlier. So there's a lot of guys that should or could be in, and not a lot of spots in the top 20.
Yeah, Weege, I think we've got 4 spots that are open, and there's 11 guys vying for those spots. And it absolutely, I think the last 4 rounds and 8 motors are going to be incredible to watch. Those last 4 spots are currently held by Dean Wilson, Kyle Chisholm, Justin Hill, and Grant Harlan. And guys, they are separated by a mere 3 points right now, which is really, really impressive. I think Wilson, Hill, and Harlan are all good to go, and I think they're going to keep those. Still plenty of questions. There's still 8 motos to race, but I think they're good. I think they're going to transfer in the top 20. But it's Kyle Chisholm that I think is going to drop out, and Marshall Welton that's going to drop in slot in there. And JT, the reason for this is while they both had incredible performances last week, season best performances at Spring Creek, Kyle Chisholm's only got 1 top 15 result this year, which was last week. Marshall Welton's got 5 top 15. So I just think he's in a better position. JT, what's it going to take for the veteran Kyle Chisholm to deliver over the next 8 motos?
Well, we should not count out Kyle Chisholm. If he has figured out anything in this sport, it is his ability to hang around and make it work when it counts. So I think some of the tracks coming up will favor Chiz, and I also think some of the rounds that we just finished favored Marshall Welton. You think about, he's from Michigan. We were at Redbud. We're in Minnesota. We've been at tracks that he knows very well. And I think about tracks like Budds Creek, where Kyle Chisholm rides very, very well. So we'll see how it goes, but I would not count Kyle Chisholm out just yet.
Anyone else that you're looking at maybe in that fight? You said 11 riders or something like that altogether, right?
There's 4 other guys. I'll call these guys the dark horses. Weege, the top of this dark horse list is Harry Coulis, who he's in for sure at Washougal, and there's a big question mark if he has the budget to go for the last 3 rounds. If he does, I think he's a lock in there, but that's a big question mark. We haven't gotten confirmation that he's going to be able to do those last 3 rounds. There's also 3 other guys, Roman Pape, Cullen Park, and Derek Kelly. All those guys are in the top 30 right now, but they're on the outside looking into the top 20, and I think it's going to take 2 or 3 great motos, JT, for those guys to do it. What do you think is the potential for those guys to have those great motos at the end of the season?
Yeah, that's why they dropped the gate, right? It's anybody's guess. I love the question for Coulis, though, because do you want to take a risk knowing how much money is potentially out there, even though it may break the budget? Are you willing to risk not having budget now and being able to repay that later with success in September? That's a very interesting question, thinking about the finances and kind of betting on yourself. We hear that phrase all the time, but he would truly be betting on himself in what he's capable of in September. But these other guys, they're really going to need some big results, right? And some riders really thrive under pressure, and others you just don't see the upside that you necessarily want. So the way this all plays out, the way it all shakes out, new riders entering the class, other riders really needing to maximize points here. It's a fascinating dynamic to watch unfold.
All right, thanks for the info. We'll see who shows up throughout the final couple of rounds of Pro Motocross. Okay, one more time. Let's tell you how to watch the action of the SuperMotocross World Championship and AMA Pro Motocross from Washougal. Race Day Live presented by motosport.com. Home race for those folks as well at noon Eastern. That'll be qualifying coverage. And then the motos start at 3 Eastern. That's noon at the track. It's an hour earlier than you'd probably expect. That's so we can fit into a nice live 1-hour show on NBC. 450s race first at Washougal. So again, it'll be 3 Eastern when the racing begins. We'll have all the coverage also on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass. Are we in for any surprises, JT? Is this just Chase Sexton walking to the end, or have we learned over and over and over and over to never, ever, ever assume things?
I think Hunter Lawrence has a chance to bounce back. I really do. But I think big picture, as far as the way this championship plays out, I think Chase Sexton has firmly asserted himself. Doesn't mean he wins every moto, but I think when we leave each weekend, we're going to realize he is the best racer now in this 450 class until further notice.
Yeah, perseverance paying off there. The bottom line is he has stayed in it when other riders have not, and it might pay dividends for him in a little bit of time when we get to the finale of Pro Motocross and then heading into the playoffs. But for now, let's talk Washougal. We will see you folks there on Saturday afternoon.